Hey everyone, and welcome to our top 7 predictions of 2026. Our intuitive spidey senses have sensed that the theme of 2026 is a year of mass awareness. That already gives us a clue that things that have been held secret and things that have been out of the public view are going to really creep up into greater awareness. What will those things be? How do we move through it? And how do we allow it to make us into a greater planet of evolving beings? We're excited to share it with you. So welcome to this video.
Yeah, welcome everyone. And this is really an exciting time. I think that for a lot of us, there have been things that have been seeping to the surface, but still a lot of question about what information is really going to help change things and bring us into our new reality. We all sense it. And this year, I think we're going to get some really cool new pieces of information. And for us, this blew our minds. We had a lot of fun doing this reading. Yeah, we were, we spent hours really just diving in and listening. And we downloaded 7 really distinct themes for this year. So 7 forecasted predictions, topics that we dove into. And let's just start with the first one. So the first one, I think it's interesting because this came through first, and it came through exactly like this. All timelines have converged into one.
Dun, dun, dun.
And that's how it came through. So clearly, we're coming from these different perspectives, different ideas, and maybe even different possibilities of where we all thought we were headed. I think for a time we thought, well, some people are headed here and some people are headed here, and some people based on, their interests and their personal growth and their belief systems would end up in different places. But where we go one is where we go all. That's what was said into my ear as we were doing this reading.
Most unexpected rapture ever.
Because we're all still here.
Well, and when we think of all timelines converging into one, we think about the year 2012. We look back and we can say 2012 was really the year where a lot of things started to really shift. It was years after the Y2K scare when we all made it through 1999. And it really was the end of the Mayan calendar. And with a lot of the work that CERN has been doing behind the scenes and allegedly opening up holes in the space-time continuum and trying to open up portals, really, we look back at 2012 and say it was the beginning of things starting to feel very different on this planet, things starting to feel, some would say, off and different. And I know for both of us as intuitives, it was the time in which we can look back and say, instead of seeing a multiplicity of multiple timelines, we started to see those options really start to decrease, and it has all converged into really one singularity. We talk about the singularity with intelligence and AI, but really for us, the singularity is the converging of these timelines into one specific timeline, which gives humanity a chance to really enter in to a collective surrender experience. And I know for a lot of us who have been on the spiritual journey, we've been surrendering ad nauseum numerous times. Feels like we've been surrendering for lifetimes. But really, we've been practicing to be the space holders for humanity as it begins to surrender into a reality where it's not a matter of what we can control. It's a matter of how we move through what occurs.
Oh, absolutely. I love how you said that too, because I can feel just the absolute truth, just thinking about our own life and journey and, coming into all of a sudden facing the reality that we're in. And I remember doing a reading back in 2019, just before, things started to really, we knew we weren't in Kansas anymore. It was sort of like everybody had this, this isn't quite the same. But I remember doing a reading and there was a moment where there were some things that felt still undecided. Like there were some path adjustments being made. And it's as if last year, there was this closed door, almost the door was closing slowly all year. And then right at the end of the year, it was click into place, no more changes. And so here we are, all making sense of this timeline that we are now sharing. And I think a lot of the details are different based on the timelines that have come together. We're seeing that with the Mandela effect and other things. But we're now all sharing a curriculum. And this curriculum is about relinquishing control, right? Of really recognize, well, I want to say that differently, because control is not something you can hold on to or relinquish.
Right.
It really isn't possible to control things. You might have an illusion of it for a time.
Sure.
But we're all learning what the divine called we're all getting our PhD in humility. Just really understanding that there are some things we believed were in our control. And as we're learning that it isn't, it's evoking this development of ourselves that is this beautiful, divine, not being humiliated, but the humility that really helps us to come together and unify as humans, as brothers and sisters on this planet.
I love how you said that. And it brings to mind this distinction. For many years, it's been a journey of consciousness, which of course it's always a journey of consciousness. But really the flavor of consciousness that 2026 brings to us is the consciousness of coexistence. So instead of it being my consciousness, your consciousness, it's really about coexistence, and it's about the harmony of coexistence and how we learn to take our inner journey of consciousness and bring it out for a dance of harmony. And it's a dance of coexistence. How will we coexist as humanity learns of the things that were hidden, that have been suppressed, that can no longer be hidden from our awareness? How will humanity coexist with their fellow neighbors, citizens of other, parallel lands, distant relatives, being able to start to see that no matter the differences that divide us, we are all one in the light and one humanity. So the consciousness of coexistence is really quite an incredible invitation as these multiple timelines become one. And really it also offers an invitation to really embrace the power of free will. For a lot of people, they will hold back the ability to make choices until they can guarantee what the choice can control and affect in their reality. And many people confuse that with what it means to be a co-creator or to manifest and trying to make things happen. But really, when we're looking at free will, we're not looking at waiting for the right choice to make something happen. We're looking at what are the choices I can make to move through this? What are the choices I can make to move through this? How will I move through this? It's why we often say that the greatest form of preparation is a willingness to be flexible.
I think that's really paid off over the years, right? The flexibility to be with life as it is and to go where you're guided. And there's going to be a lot that's coming undone this year. There's going to be a lot of ideas that have been built up around us as identities. A lot of these walls of truth that we thought were truth are going to come crumbling down. And we're in this sort of first stage awareness. This first stage of collapsing those ideas comes with the inability to keep things secret anymore. So those who really enjoy, right, that sit behind the scenes and kind of do their little masterful, how do I manipulate reality or my family or whatever? How do I get my way? Those who are doing that behind closed doors are going to have a harder time keeping their plans secret for any length of time. So things are just going to get exposed much faster than they have in the past. I think we've been playing catch up.
Yeah.
So a lot of things that have been hidden for a long time are coming forward, but also the attempts to keep secrets now, brand new ones. It's almost laughable. It's like you try to keep a secret and then it just emerges.
Sure.
People are onto it. They're beginning to see through it. They understand when people are lying to them. They understand when something doesn't feel quite right, and they know they need to investigate or deep dive what's going on inside of them or in that experience. So there's so much that's coming undone. And I feel like this is really developing something deeper within us.
It really is. It reminds us the world could only be controlled in secrecy. So with the end of secrecy continuing to propel our world forward, and with the year of mass awareness, really it's an opportunity for humanity to step back into its agency and sovereignty. And with everything that happens in the year, it's an opportunity for us to strengthen certain skills. With this first theme that we're sharing with you, where multiple timelines converge into one, it really gives us a chance to practice or to hone the skill set of perspective. And in honing the skill set of perspective, here's our invitation to you. Our invitation is for 2026 and perhaps beyond. Instead of being a time to ask yourself, why is this happening? What do I think about this happening? Instead of asking those questions, what if the question we really sit with is, how will I move through this? So in the absence of what do I think about this or that, and when will this occur, or why isn't this happening, or what is it about my past and my traumas that make something happen and something else doesn't happen? Instead of being in that negotiation, what if we step forward, we move out of the past, and we simply ask ourselves the only question presence can ever ponder: how will I move through this? And the question itself, how will I move through this, includes the initial acceptance that I will move through this. I am moving through this. And the choices we make are not to control what happens, but to remind us that I am moving through this. And the choices that I make are helping me become aware of what I'm moving through as the universe reveals. No matter what occurs, I am always meant to move through this. And the choices become that reminder and that remembrance.
I love that. And what a great place to start for the rest of these predictions.
Absolutely.
I feel like this is a really nice way to anchor in and really feel our sovereignty developing and feel just the power underlying all of it. I think so often we get caught up in the chaos and we don't see the perspective and the perspective that's happening. And I love that what you just shared. I think that's really meaningful for all of us to remember, where I will definitely come back to this. Yeah, really beautiful.
Our second prediction of 2026 really came through as a cryptic message of 5 words. Now, of course, we're going to unpack it with you and share. And it's not nearly as cryptic as it sounds, but it came through when we were doing the reading as the 5 words: innocence, gone, painful public event. And I remember we saw this and we went, oh my God, what is happening? So let's unpack this together.
Yeah, we truly, it was like, oh, and immediately as we started diving into this, we realized this is a really hot topic.
Yes.
Literally, I'm being very punny right now as we unpack this, but
Incredibly
it's a hot topic that we know we're going to be talking about all year.
Yes.
So it feels like this one came right out of the gate as number 2 because it's going to be a big part of our conversation. This one is all about the sun. So the big event that's happening has to do with something that's hiding behind the sun. So we heard those cryptic terms, and honestly, I went, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Is there going to be a bombing? Is there's going to be, we're so used to. I think we've actually been so programmed to expect these kinds of horrific events, and maybe there will be some more of those. We didn't pick up on that, at least in this. This big public event had more to do with our theme of the year, which is awareness. So there's something that's been hiding, or something that's been hidden from us by people who are aware of this, that there's something behind the sun. It is something connected to why the sun is in. Now it's interesting because we're in a solar cycle that's just, a peak solar cycle. That's normal. That happens regularly. But there's something behind this one that's creating some intensity that a lot of people haven't been able to explain. And so this something that's behind the sun, and we're going to try to unfold this a little bit because it came through as a blessing, that this something behind the sun is a blessing for all of us, but it is creating an intensity to the energy and the photons and how they're impacting humanity's awakening.
Well, it's interesting because we have so many powerful solar storms or coronal mass ejections. For those of us that study and follow Schumann resonance and are aware of when these solar storms enter the atmosphere of our planet, how that really does affect our cognitive ability, how it really does affect our energy and our ability to process information. I remember, many years ago, I would only experience these types of symptoms in Mercury retrograde. Now it seems like we live in a retrograde of some sort. And it's really because there's so much solar activity occurring. Some people will say allegedly that it's because of climate change, but we're in a cycle where this is just the natural evolution of how the sun ebbs and flows. So when we speak about innocence gone, painful public event, I wonder who it's painful for.
Yeah. So the sense is that the pain isn't for most of us. It's not necessarily for the planet.
Right.
So this was interesting. The public pain was about more of an embarrassment of those who've been keeping it a secret or those who have been trying to convince us that it's otherwise. So there's something related to that. And maybe they even, there was this sense that maybe they even try to continue with some sort of a hoax to hide this, like to try to keep it hidden. It's just as cryptic for us as it might be for you, but we were given sort of these images and senses, but what we could feel is a really big embarrassment for those who have been guiding our world or sharing this information.
Sure.
So groups of scientists, not all of them, but certain groups of people who are speaking on behalf of some of these topics have deliberately kept this from us. So that was really interesting. And so the public pain was about their embarrassment.
Interesting. And so innocence gone, referring to we are no longer able to be deceived by things that were presented in a way that are really untrue. And we were taught things about the sun. And in fact, there's something behind the sun that will be exposed and to help us all be able to be clearer about the world we allegedly live in.
Right. I think that there are some ideas and people and authority figures that are going to be losing their credibility this year, while others rise up to help support. And some of these things will just become so obvious to a few of us that it sort of becomes a mainstream awareness without even somebody saying, this is what it is, right? Somebody having to declare there's an obvious awareness that this is happening. And so it feels like this moment of like, just seeing a truth and not needing explanation, which thank goodness, because how in the world do you sort through all of the news and information and headlines to get to the truth? So I think this is one of those really cool moments where we start to see through things in a big way.
And, when we talk about this type of revelation, begs the question of what skill is this helping us refine at these times? And of course, I think one of the most obvious skills that this revelation will help us to hone individually and collectively is the skill of discernment. That really, as things have been presented to be one way, and then we find out it's not really that way and never really has been, we start to develop this discernment of where do I gain my information from? What am I willing to trust? And do I need as much external information as I've been led to believe? And can I start being more internally oriented and guided by my own inner wisdom, my own inner guidance? And maybe we're going to find through the power of discernment that we don't actually need to know so much about what is or what isn't. We just need to be in tune with where we're at. And again, how will I move through this?
That's beautiful because whatever it is has been there,
Yes.
right? And I think that it's such a mirror for that deep inner voice in us, that inner knowing that is the source of our discernment.
Right.
So I love that so much as us developing that. I think discovering that there is something unseen that's been impacting us helps us really make sense of the unseen in us. And I think it's going to be such a beautiful awareness for a lot of people in this. While I think it might be shocking, I don't know what it is.
Right.
Is
I don't either.
Is it another planet? Is it another star? Is it a ship? We don't know. But if we do ever get any info about it, we will share it with you.
The one thing we do know what it is not. It is not Three-Eye Atlas.
It is not.
It is not. It is not Three-Eye Atlas. It is not that thing. So just, for all of us that are holding our Life on Planet Earth bingo cards.
Right, our 2025 clipboard.
Yeah, it is not put next through Three-Eye Atlas.
Yeah.
And really, I think through the power of discernment, one thing that's really interesting is when I tune into this, I'm not sure that what the revelation is going to be the biggest deal. The biggest deal is going to be the realization that this was intentionally hidden.
Yeah.
And that brings humanity to the question of what else has been hidden. We all know things have been spun in a certain way. We all know there's information that certain people know about that the world doesn't know about. But this is where we collectively go, I knew it all along. What else is being hidden? And again, the focus not being on the specifics about the sun, but really the intentionality to suppress information and what we collectively think about that moving forward.
That reminds me, when we were tapping into this, we were also thinking about, will this stop blue beam from happening, or will it actually accelerate it?
That's right.
Yeah. What was your sense?
Well, and for those of us, who hear that word blue beam and may not know, may not have a hyperlink to that file, Project Bluebeam allegedly is a plan that for those that control who think they're in control of the earth, there are so many strategies to keep humanity divided, to stop humanity from uniting. That keeps a very small group of people in charge of many, many people. And one of the plans to control people, and what has always been known as this long 40 some odd year in the making plan, that a lot of us see as the end game, the final strategy, if all else fails, is called Project Bluebeam. And you can Google that for your own research. And it is a technology that has been patented, and it is the ability to be able to project into the atmosphere hologram-like realities, which would give people who think they're in control the ability to project things into the sky and basically turn the sky into a holographic movie screen, and to be able to stage what could look like an alien invasion for the purpose of trying to get humanity to unite and live fearfully and gratefully under the oppressive thumb of the people who want to try to stay in control. It's why for so many years there have been movies about evil aliens invading, going back to the Body Snatchers movie many years ago. And it's to plant seeds to keep people subconsciously afraid of life in different planetary systems. So if need be, they could use the Bluebeam technology to project holographic realities. They've even talked about even projecting images of religious icons and symbols to deceive humanity into a false union of some sort. And so when we say Project Bluebeam, that's actually what we're referring to.
Yeah, so it's the opportunity to deceive us in the skies. But if you were listening in our first one, we were talking about it's going to be very difficult to keep these deceptions from being seen. There are too many people that are seeing them and seeing through them. And so the ability to, I think, be able to pull the wool over our eyes in this way is not as likely as maybe it would have been if they could have pulled it off, 10 years ago. So I think we're in a completely different time. Yeah. My sense is they're going to try it. Yeah. They're going to try to do something. In fact, I think they're already doing it. I think a lot of the sightings, I think they're testing it in certain locations, including where we are in Arizona. It feels like there are some tests that happen regularly, some real things and some not so real things. And I think that it will be, if it happens, it'll be a short period of time before it kind of fizzles out. It feels like didn't quite catch.
Didn't quite work. And just as a little aside, we could all, tighten our tinfoil hats for a moment. One of the things that supports Project Bluebeam, it's not the only reason why this was created and brought to the masses, but because there's always several reasons why things happen. But one of the most cryptic reasons why AI was brought to the masses was because AI technology, as we all see, can create video footage where things that look so real aren't really actually happening. They're fabricated by AI technology. And that was actually created to move us into a world where we didn't know what was actually real footage and what was AI footage. And that was done as a telegraphed effort so that if and when people have footage of real landings, they could always say, oh no, that was just AI. That was AI. That was fake. And so that's actually one of the reasons AI was brought to the masses. One of them, even though it's confusion and gaslighting, even though AI can be used in a very conscious way. It was to be a gaslight so that if and when real phenomenon happens, they could say, oh, nope, that's AI, or that got exposed. Nope, that was just AI. That was just fake news. And yet the real fabrication is this Project Bluebeam technology. And so really, again, going back to the power of discernment that we said previously, this is an opportunity to really deepen and sharpen the skill set of trusting your instincts.
Yeah.
Trust your instincts. If it doesn't seem real, it might not be real. If you're not sure, then just step back and stay in awareness and let it all unfold. Your instincts will always show you the way. And so please let this be a time where we all trust our instincts. There will never be a truth that is greater than your instinctive response. Truth can only resonate. Truth never contradicts. And it's really important that we all remember that.
Yeah. And there's so many subtleties in that. This is why it has to be developed. There are a lot of things that we have to learn about our emotions, our body, the way that we function. And so many of you are on that journey. And I think we're going to get even more succinct with understanding our cues, understanding our intuition, our instinct. And I'm really excited about that.
Very excited. Okay, are you ready for prediction number 3?
Yes.
Okay. Prediction number 3 came to us in 3 words. Significant coming together.
Okay. So I heard that and I got really kumbaya excited. I imagined us embracing at events, world events. I was really excited. We're going to come arm in arm. There may be some of that. But as we unpacked this, we realized that it was more specific. And it's funny because our intuition is like that. It's so literal. It's like, here are the words. And it means literally humans are going to be moving closer together. So there is going to be something in all of these truths that are being revealed, the awareness that's seeping through humanity as we become more aware of what's happening with the sun and what, some of the truths that have been hidden from us. We're not going to understand all of it this year, but we're going to get one truth that begins to shape our future. So we start to see our future differently. Sort of like when we knew that something was changing back in 2016 and 17, it was like, I think things are changing. That's where we are this year. So we're in this beginning of, I think things are changing. And here's kind of the nature of that change. And I think it has a lot to do with the revelation about the sun. And it causes us to look at our globe differently and then the unfolding of what might be happening on the globe. So I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a change in the conversation around global warming. So it used to be, no matter where you turned, that was the big conversation. And then we haven't been talking about it as much because we realize that we're on a cycle. There's a lot of this cycling energy, and there are a lot of things that are being impacted as a result. Of course, humans have not cared for the planet in a way that's, terribly we haven't all been kind. We'll say it that way. So there's been a lot of destruction. So we're not lightening that at all and the impact that humans make on the planet. But there's more to the story. But the story involves changing of climate.
Right.
So we really are changing climate on this planet. And because of that, we'll have more information and it's going to inspire movement. So we started to see people leaving continents and going to others. We started seeing all of the migration that we've been witnessing the last couple of years amping up, but in a very deliberate way and not all at once.
Kind of like a few years ago when we saw masses of people leave California and go to Austin, Texas.
Right.
Right, like that, but in a bigger way. And we tune into this significant coming together. Again, it does relate to the activity of the sun. We are noticing things in the world like the drying up of the Euphrates River. We are seeing the melting of the polar ice caps, in Greenland and Antarctica. And when the ice melts, it does elevate the sea levels. So one of the things that we were tuning into and getting specific is seeing people move from coastal locations to inland locations. And based on, again, whatever is revealed about the sun causes people, and again, it doesn't mean a mass exodus overnight. It means people start to make plans. And I know for so many of you that are regulars in our community, Some of you have been getting intuition saying, I think I'm meant to move. I think I'm meant to move and I don't know where to go. And so our intuition confirms that more and more people are going to have this sense beginning in 2026. And again, not an overnight move, but beginning this experience of migrating from coastal locations to inland locations. And we sense that one of the markers of this, or one of the causes of this, will be the rising of the sea levels, the melting of the ice caps, and very interesting as we tune into that precedent.
Yeah, and it definitely doesn't feel chaotic or catastrophic. So it's not like all of a sudden something happens on the globe. Right. I think we'll continue to see earth changes that influence earthquakes and volcanoes and those types of things. Those are natural parts of the earth shifting. This is it is over time. So I think we felt a lot of ease in this. Again, we didn't feel a lot of catastrophic events. We felt this ability for us to make these changes, and the ability for us to know we had time. So it wasn't like we were feeling this clock of I've got to go right now. And of course, we'll all have different experiences of that urgency and what that means for us, depending on where we are in the world. And we'll experience, our own levels of grief if you find out that, one part of the world that you live in maybe won't be as hospitable over time. And so you learn that information and it causes you to make a change. There could be some grief, especially culturally, and thinking about your roots and your history. And, so we were reminded that we, humans are a migratory being. We've always migrated. And it's not uncommon that this happens on this planet. There are times when we migrate and we move, and different parts of the earth are under ice and snow, and other parts are green and thriving, and then it changes. So we're in that change. And I think a lot of stories have said it'll happen, overnight or quickly, or it's going to be this, and
pole shifts.
Yeah. And so while those things might be true, none of us here right now that I'm aware of has lived through any of that. And so I think we're getting information in a little more steady flow from at least our guides, that it's much more peaceful than we realize. There are certain things that happen for sure in certain regions of the world, but it's not global. It's not like one big global destruction. And so that might be, stories that were emphasized for the benefit of something that was written for an area of the world that maybe became, like this global thing. But it really is coming through very different for us.
And also it felt as if as humanity starts to migrate, and again, not everyone in humanity, but just pockets of migration from coastal to inland areas. It also is the beginning shift of humanity, instead of being so globally oriented.
Yeah, that works.
Oriented. Oriented, it's not focused. A word. Yeah, focused to being more communally focused. And it's the beginning. It's the beginning shift of human beings really deriving their connection and maybe even their news or sense of purpose in a community setting, and looking at not just how am I and how am my family, but how are the people who surround me that I'm most connected to. So it's really the return back to the importance of community. And it's a really beautiful thing. So with that in mind, one of the skills that this prediction will help us to really hone in 2026 is the skill of adaptability. And that really, this is about being adaptable, being open. Doesn't mean that we have to move from place to place every 2 weeks. But if we start to feel the call of migration, right? If you're a bird, I know none of us are birds, but if you saw a flock fly in a different direction, you thought, oh, that's my cue. I meant to go, and that's my new community. If you feel that call, it really is allowing you to strengthen the skill of adaptability. Again, you don't have to wait till you know all the choices and what they will control, because there's nothing to control. It's about, how will I move through this? How adaptable can I become? For some of us, it will be the feeling of, I think I'm going to move, and we make the move. For some of us, the adaptability is, I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And both are correct. It's just a matter of which one arises for you, and will you embrace the call And will you really heed its wisdom?
I love that. As you were talking, I was just thinking about how the migratory patterns of birds do change. And it's a little disruptive at first, but they're unaware of our borders. So they don't think about, especially here in Arizona, birds don't think, well, that's where I winter is in Arizona. What they feel is the magnetic pull to certain regions. And we've noticed over the last few years, the birds changing, more of certain birds. We've noticed that hummingbirds are here throughout the year, and we're seeing more of them in the winter than we did before. So there's a lot of different migratory patterns that are already being witnessed by animals who aren't thinking about where they're going. They just respond.
Sure.
And so because we have free will, it takes us a little longer to feel those pulls and go, I think I'll make that move, right? And so I think as we become more instinctual and more flexible, it's going to get a lot easier to see ourselves without needing to pay too much attention to where we've always been and what the borders have been, and these boxes and yards and things we've put ourselves into. And I think it's going to be a really good time for humanity. But I say that with, we've got a lot of peace coming through. We know this is going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be some for many different people, because again, the underlying theme is the awareness and the control. So landing into humility isn't going to be easy. So I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I also want to be, help us see that this is a peaceful awakening and there is so much goodness coming through, but it might be individually uncomfortable depending on where you are and what you're aligned with.
The awakening is as peaceful as you are willing to be flexible and adaptable. And so again, this all really comes down to a very incredible theme. And the theme is, will I move into greater awareness, or will I try to grip something to control? Awareness versus control. Yeah. Which side will you choose? That's the easiest way to understand what the invitations of 2026 will be.
Beautiful.
So as we move into prediction number 4, this is where, when we read the title of what came through, we both kind of laughed and looked at each other and went, well, what do we have here? Because even as intuitives, the beauty of intuition is that you're always surprised. Intuition is not about knowing everything. It's about being able to be guided through the journey. So for prediction number 4, we saw the words, news about where you're from. News about where we're from.
And we'll be honest, there for a moment, we were like, maybe we won't include this one.
Maybe it'll be 6 predictions. 6 really good predictions. 7th.
But as intuitives, one of the rules we live by is share what's coming through. So, so we're going to share it, and it might be the craziest story we've ever told. And, but someone here needs to hear it. And I think we did too. I think this was really important for us to go, okay, I think it's trying to bring some affirmation to some people, maybe help us see, maybe you're feeling something around this topic and you needed to hear it. And so whether or not this is going to come forward, we're told that there's going to be something that comes out that reinforces this. Now, this becomes important to later predictions, which we didn't realize, but something is going to come forward in the news, some news story that we don't know how far and wide it goes, but there is some news story that begins to share with us the nature of our origins. So origins being where humanity is from, not necessarily, we were talking about this, there's so many of us who feel connected to other places and star systems, but we're really talking about the origin of humanity, the humans on this planet. Where did we come from?
Well, and to your point, some of us will feel connected to the Pleiades, to, I remember Atlantis or Lemuria or all different star systems. I remember Lyra or Orion, and those would be examples of where your soul may have originated from. But what we were feeling is that there will be some news or some evidence or some unveiling about where humanity's origins began. So again, there's a lot of us that experienced life in different star systems or even different planets or dimensions before coming to Earth. But really, this is about the origins of humanity's beginnings and really how that differs from the general understanding of where humanity is thought to originate from, which, I don't know, there's some people that still believe in Darwinian theory.
Yeah, I mean, there's evidence for certain Darwinian concepts,
Sure,
but we know none of these things seem to capture everything. We can poke holes in almost every theory, and we're not trying to upset any belief anybody has around that. We're just sharing what came through. But what came through was that something is going to point us to those origins in a way that really pokes holes in an even bigger way in a lot of this. And so again, we're not getting the entire story of humans or bipedal species or other star systems. We're just getting a very specific story that feels like it's been hidden from us, that's made us all feel a little abandoned or unsure of who we are, right? So when you don't know where you're from, when you don't know those origins, it can be unsettling. This is why if we've been adopted, for example, we feel sort of this pull to understand who's my biological family. We want to understand that. And so collectively, it creates a kind of confusion for us that by introducing more information gives us some peace. And this is why people love religious stories or ancient stories, because there's a peace that comes with it, right? A piece of, okay, I think that's where I resonate. I think that's where I'm from. So something's going to happen, and it's going to help us understand that this is what came through. I'm not saying this. We're not saying this. We are saying it.
We are saying it.
But it's what we're currently speaking out loud, saying it. But that there was some sort of ship that crashed here a very long time ago. And it looks like evidence of that crash may come to the surface in a news story. So maybe somewhere under ice, we don't know. We don't know if this is related to Antarctica, Greenland, somewhere else, but there's some evidence of this wreckage. And it's how we were brought here. It's how we began. And so there's a couple of things that have come through. So you're going to have to help me unpack this a little bit from the story side of it. But I'll because we were talking about how we wanted to share this, but essentially this ship traveled through the Ursa Major, Ursa Minor area of our solar system. So the Big Bear and the Little Bear, right, in the sky. Yes. So in that region where the North Star, I guess, is located.
Yes.
I'm not a
astronomer.
No, I'm not an astronomer.
We're not astrotographers, okay? We are intuitives.
We're not astromagicians, is what I was going to say.
We are not astro. We're not.
Because this came through not because we have the knowledge about any of this.
No.
This is just how it was shown to us. Big Bear, Little Bear, we came from that place. Giant star, the North Star is where we emerged out of that area of the sky of the solar system. And then that ship crashed, and the occupants of that ship survived and helped bring humanity to the current form that it is.
Well, the sense we got when we were tuning into this energy was like, wow, how big is this ship to bring people here? But it wasn't that it brought beings here. It brought the DNA.
Yeah.
And the DNA became human beings once it arrived here. So the revelation is we were brought here. We were born here. We're not from here.
Yeah.
May not be a surprise for any of us who are listening to this, certain for any of you astrologists out there who are laughing at our intuitive sharings. But that's what we were told is that the ship crashed here, passed through Ursa Minor, and it was saying the star is related to the bear, which is known as Ursa Major. And as that revelation is shared, just like with the sun prediction, it helps us to understand, having a different perspective of who we are, and to really confirm that, again, we're here visiting, but no one was really from here. We're born here. We're having an experience here. Is it a simulation? Is this an an angel academy?
Right.
Is this a dream? Is this an arcade game in heaven? Either way, we start to really collectively as a species realize that none of us are actually from here, and the implications of that.
Yeah. And one of the beautiful things that came through with this is that there are stories that are currently that have come out of North America and maybe other places in the world, but it was told to us that on the North American continent, there were stories from the First Nations, the people that were here a very long time ago, that they had stories of creation that were that we came from the stars and we were guided by a grandmother energy. There are stories about the grandmother, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, and that these stories are as close as we have to genuine creation stories, that there are deeper layers of those stories that people will share. And maybe some of you who come from those roots that have family stories that have been shared over the ages, maybe some of you have wisdom around those conversations, and more people will be talking about that. So we'll hear more of those beautiful stories, and they'll start to become more of a fabric of our experience. People will hear more about them, and the storytelling will start to happen that kind of seeps into our consciousness.
Absolutely. And with this type of revelation, what skill is that helping us to refine? But the skill of acceptance.
Yeah.
And the ability to, again, what do I think about this information? Do I believe it? Do I doubt it? Again, how will I move through this? And hopefully we'll move through this with greater acceptance. And the greater acceptance that says, may we spend more time being grateful for what is being revealed instead of resentful for what's been suppressed and held back. And if we really feel the difference in that, it's a chance to build more consciousness instead of building more walls within our shadow. This is a time to come out of hiding. And this is a chance, again, to be grateful for what's being revealed instead of resentful for what's been suppressed.
I love that. I love the vision of that. I just feeling that and feeling the stories, feeling people sharing new ideas and new stories. It's time. I think we've been talking so much about the collapse and the things that aren't going well that it feels really sacred to have new conversations that bring us back to more of who we are.
And maybe this is why we have phrases like follow your North Star.
Yeah.
Because we're being guided to turn our attention back to where guidance originates from, the place where we originate from. Prediction number 5.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. A deception in Denmark.
Yeah, this one came through so specific. It's so interesting because we're not political.
No.
So this is not something we would normally be interested or drawn to as a conversation. So, but it definitely plays a role this year. There's something that is emerging, an awareness out of Denmark.
Yes.
Now, it was funny as we were getting this, a deception in Denmark, we also got maybe Holland too.
Maybe Holland too.
So we don't know, for whatever reason, Holland's not off the hook.
I just got an intuition that Holland says, leave us out of it. Leave us out of it. You already named a cruise ship after us.
Right.
Leave us out of it.
So we really, truly know very little about the politics of this region or the history. We know that Denmark is under a monarchy. So the couple of the things that came through around that is, from a monarchy perspective, it's a government scandal that has to do with a previous queen. So a previous female monarch, and connected to potentially the prime minister at that time, or a prime minister at the time. We're not really sure, but she's the main character of this deception. So whatever happened, she was keenly aware of it, or she was a big character playing a significant role in this deception being possible. And the deception has to do with money. So it's something that changes the financial future of Denmark. So I don't know what that is, except for it's a lie, something that deceived the public, that positioned Denmark in a particular way. And that's coming out, and it's going to be surprising. So I other than, I mean, I think it's interesting. If I lived in Denmark, I might be a little bit more, maybe some people know, maybe they're like, oh, we know exactly what this is. I don't know, but there's definitely something happening, stirring there. And it's shifting our allies or their allies, like their alignment in the world. So there's something going on where there's a positioning happening. And this came through for us before we were aware of what was going on with, say, Greenland and other things, and that they might be involved. We didn't know, and that came through after we were channeling this. And so, but I don't know that it's necessarily connected. This is something that happened a long time ago. So,
listen, we are intuitives. We're not monarchaeologists of any kind.
We're not solarologists.
No, we're not solarologists, monarchaeologists. We're intuitives.
Yeah.
But that was just a very clear sense that there's something that's being revealed, something that occurred.
Yeah.
And so, but I do wonder if there is any connection to or how this would affect the people of Greenland in any way.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be curious if anybody's listening in from that area of the world, or know somebody who knows a lot about the history of Denmark and how they might be connected to Holland in some mysterious deception. We would really love to know.
This is very mysterious.
And of course, we don't take lightly if the impact this may have, the collective impact it may have on the country's finances or anybody individually. We kind of giggle about it because we just really don't. We don't know much more than that, but it definitely feels like it's pretty big news, at least for a minute. Yeah.
So again, whether you live in Denmark, adjacent to you're Denmark adjacent, or around Denmark, distantly, everything that happens in the world is an opportunity to cultivate a certain skill set. So perhaps if there is a deception in Denmark, it gives us a chance to deepen the skill set of tolerance. That in our world, there are things that are revealed that are not always of the highest level of ethical integrity. And there are things that occur in this planet that, no matter whether it is the agenda of a few or it seems diabolical in nature, the one thing that is always true from the universe's perspective is that everything that happens can only occur for the purposes of bringing humanity together as one. No matter how long a deception has been going on, no matter the length of time it takes to be revealed, no matter the length of time that something in Denmark is coming to the surface, no matter what is or will and won't be the fate of the Jeffrey Epstein files, everything egregious that happens in our world can only occur so that in the revelation of it, its effect will be bringing our world together as one and into a higher level of collective and individual consciousness. So with that, no matter what is revealed, may it be an opportunity for us to strengthen our tolerance. And again, instead of it being, what do I think about it? What do I wish would have happened? How will I move through this? And can I be grateful for what is being revealed instead of resentful for what's been withheld? That's our invitation.
Wow. And I love that, because as you were saying that with the tolerance, it brings me back to just our day-to-day of, while these things have been happening and been perpetrated, maybe deceptions for so long, we get through it by making a way to get through it.
Yes.
So we have to be able to have a path of redemption for people, for humanity itself. And so I really love this idea of really cultivating a tolerance while holding people accountable, but to be able to move through this. I think that's really beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. Last two predictions for 2026 brings us to number 6. Number 6, something once blocked opens up.
Our hearts. So this one was very specific, and both of us immediately got an image of a waterway.
Yeah.
So it was like once blocked, we couldn't go through it. All of a sudden it's like open.
Right.
And this one, this might be a little bit of us having some information about the world. We're aware of things going on in Greenland.
Yes.
But it really came through strong that it's that waterway is opening up, that the ice is melting, people are moving through it, people are beginning to develop ships that help you get through that area. That trade route is opening. So we could feel it. There's a major contract that gets put into place. There's a group of individuals or an individual that guides this contract between countries and makes it so sort of like the Panama Canal situation where you're able to go through for trade. So I think a lot of us have been looking at, or a lot of people have been speculating that this might be an open area that, Greenland was all about protecting from a military perspective, but this feels way bigger and way more long-term what's happening there. So that waterway is opening, and it's the vision that we got came through as a really beautiful, lush area. So greenery coming back. It's not going to be warm overnight, but there's greenery that's coming back in a bigger way, and there's prosperity. So
Yes.
this waterway is going to bring a lot of financial prosperity, and in ways that we may not agree with. We may not love the mining that happens as a result, or the way that people, operate with bringing civilization or cultural ideas that aren't a part of that area of the world. People will be descending upon that area. There'll be a boom in activity that will benefit some, maybe a challenge for others. We're just seeing what's unfolding, and that area is going to bring prosperity. And a lot of this goes back to something that's going on with the sun, which clearly is melting things there and changing the dynamic of the planet.
Absolutely. When we think of the opening of a waterway and a new trade route opening up, that also means that other trade routes around the world that other countries have maybe used to their advantage to try to control the flow of economy by threatening to close down certain trade routes if certain agreements are made, really a balance of power starts to open up because of this new trade route opening up in the North American area. It's also, again, an opportunity for my sense is the world to support the preservation of Greenland and for it not to become another mineral-rich resource cash grab.
Right.
And for this not to be about the raping and pillaging of land, and to really preserving the integrity of this land for the people.
Yeah, there are people living there who are, this is been their home.
When we think about balance, there can be the new trade routes open, which would benefit other countries without it being taking the minerals and resources of that country. So here's hoping for that, that humanity can advocate for a country like Greenland to be preserved instead of exploited. And we think about this kind of a story. What skill is this helping us cultivate? Interesting. I would say it'd be the skill of advocacy.
Yeah.
That let us not just watch what happens in other countries, like we're watching a YouTube video with the external world as our screen. Let's begin to advocate for the integrity of a country like Greenland. Sure, the sun is melting the ice and it opens up a trade route. That's great for the world. That's wonderful. But let's allow us to advocate for the people of Greenland, just like so many of us this past year began to publicly advocate for the people of Gaza. And we advocate for the people of the Sudan. And we advocate for the people in Burkina Faso and all these other countries where we want all beings and all people to have an equitable experience, a peaceful experience, a fair experience. So may this year be an opportunity for us to strengthen the skill of advocacy.
And I think that if we can see through it quickly, that this isn't about military presence, because the military is already there. This isn't about having, an advantage. Well, some people will believe that and maybe even will argue with me on that. But if we see through this, what we're being shown is this isn't about military advantage. This isn't about protecting. This isn't about protecting countries, people, ideologies, or politics. This is about the land that's underneath it. And as soon as we can start seeing through that, it'll help us be ahead of the game so we don't keep repeating the same cycles of colonization that we've done in the past. It can help us start to, like Matt said, advocate sooner, not when we start seeing, oh my gosh, the writing's on the wall, there's no turning back.
Right.
So the sooner we can begin seeing things, the more we embody awareness, which is our theme this year. Awareness is about being able to do something and change sooner. We become more keenly aware. We take action sooner rather than waiting until the awareness is so in our face that we have to do something about it. So I think we are being developed overall in our awareness, our ability to take action from awareness sooner.
And really, it also becomes an opportunity to advocate for the will of the people. So, because if we all stay complicit in our technocratic-driven society, that means that what political and military moves begin to happen, if we don't say anything, then we're kind of consenting to what is occurring. And we want the will of the people overseeing this country or running it, governing it politically and militarily to always carry out the will of the people. So it's really an incredible opportunity. Again, in the previous prediction, it was about acceptance. This is more of an active energy of advocacy and being able to publicly say, because we're already making comments on social media, we're already active in our engagement, but to be able to say, I do not consent and agree to this decision. It is not the will of the people, and begin to advocate so that the will of the people can be the guiding light, governing force, and loudest voice in the conversation.
Yes.
Last but not least, our final prediction for 2026. Number 7, it came through as a new religion arises into prominence.
So that's how we responded.
That's how we were. What?
Huh?
A new religion?
Yeah. So, it's a really interesting year.
Yeah.
So if we just kind of reflect on all of the predictions that came before. So we know there are a lot of these changes that are happening that if you look out into the world at the beginning of this year, you see a lot of the divisiveness and wanting to inspire violence, your neighbor against neighbor. There's still a lot of that desire to get that going. And there's a lot of violence that is happening in a lot of different countries. There's a lot of this that looks very focused on war. We were surprised that this entire year didn't talk about war at all.
Not at all.
We didn't get one prediction about war. So we don't know if that's just not something we can see, but it almost felt like just wasn't the top story.
Right.
So I'm encouraged by that. And so I just wanted to share that as we kind of came to the end of our predictions, that it's not that we're leaving any of that out. We know there are a lot of current events that it feels like want to be the center of our attention, but the universe is clearly showing us these topics are actually the biggies that are unfolding.
Something to also know about collective programming that's very interesting on how the subconscious mind works. When you put out news stories about these countries at war or going to war, or this country is going to attack this country, and then there's a cooling off period of we almost went to war, but we didn't. What happens in the collective ego structure is the ego says, I thought we were going to war. I thought this was going to happen. And what actually occurs is you program people to believe there's going to be a war and that you are constantly living on the brink of nuclear fallout. And you do that for a couple reasons. You do that to dysregulate nervous systems so that people's root chakras are ungrounded. So they look to the voice of the media as a savior and a rescuer, even subconsciously. But when you're constantly pushing towards war and then stepping back, the ego goes, come on, do it already. And it actually forces humanity to subconsciously, in a very manipulative way, try to help these people manifest the war they actually want to bring out. Yeah. So they manipulate people into, you keep moving to the brink of war and then pulling back. Just do it already. Mm-hmm. And they're hoping for the power of humanity's ability to manifest to try to force the hand of what they really want to create, which is wartime scenarios. And so for us to be able to see through it, for us not to subconsciously crave the war, that would then take us out of this intensity, right? Part of us subconsciously craves the war, not because we want conflict, but because we want relief to the pressure we live in. Mm-hmm. And so if we see that and we know it's kind of a psychological operation, we can be able to say, thank God there isn't a prediction of war. Mm-hmm. If and when it happens, we will ask ourselves the question, how do I move through this? But to be very aware of how subconsciously we're programmed to crave and anticipate the very thing because we think that will finally be the release to the pressure we live in. And let's all individually and collectively become much smarter than that.
Yeah. We also have another psychological part of us, this aspect where we want to take ideas and form them into something structured and rigid. Mm. So it was interesting when we saw a new religion arises into prominence.
Right.
Honestly, from our own perceptions, we thought, well, maybe this is AI. Right? Maybe this is technological. Maybe this is because they've been pushing us in this direction. Maybe this is scientific, which, we definitely see a lot of religious behaviors around some of these topics. But this is actually a new religion that arises based on the topics we've been talking about today, related to the stories of our origins. It looks like some of the younger people among us, some of the Gen X population, maybe will take the lead. I think you were seeing a bit of that, and that they'll take the lead in really coming back to ancient teachings and sharing those, connecting with them deeply, actually finding deeper connection with what our ancestors once knew. And as a result, maybe going back to, we were seeing the bear again. So we were seeing the story of the grandmother, the story of Ursa Major and Minor. Some of those stories were coming up here as a potential guiding energy, that our origins start to shape religion in a new way. Because we know the impact on those who have been looking for those kinds of answers, if they're part of a religion now, may want another religion to kind of help them transition. That's common. And we all love to come together in ceremony. We love ceremony. We love structure. We love these things. And so we were shown that these ancient stories would begin forming based on stories that came out of some of the North American tribes, specifically those early individuals who were sharing those stories word of mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we tuned into this, a new religion arises into prominence, doesn't necessarily mean that there's a religion that everyone has to adopt. Mm-mm. What we sensed was, based on the revelation of these First Nation stories about our origins coming from the Bear constellation, Ursa Major, and that revelation, that we felt like Gen Z in particular would become open and resonant to exploring the wisdom and traditions and perhaps the culture of the First Nations and of our ancestors. And so perhaps they would see it almost like a religion of having things more ceremonial. And what was really beautiful about the vision is I was seeing a lot of Gen Z generation connecting with the elders. Yeah. So it was like the younger generation connecting with the elders over the wisdom of our ancestral origins. And so they may view it kind of like a religion, but it feels really like the younger generation culturally connecting with the elders of our First Nations, and that really helping to really repair some damage in our First Nation tribes, as well as allow the elders to pass their wisdom down and to open the perspective and mind and give greater purpose and direction for Gen Z. And so we feel that some people may look at it from like almost a religious context, but it really is just how the younger generation may find greater identity in some of these ancestral stories that are being revealed about our origins.
Yeah, I love that. And we just got this beautiful, subtle message to remember not to make it dogmatic, but just to really open up to the beauty and embrace these ideas and embrace what is evoked in us in these stories. and maybe bring us back to more of that storytelling and the connection and those elements that we all really, I think, help us thrive together by coming together, which, religions tend to do well sometimes by bringing people together, but to not focus so much on the dogma of it.
I thought originally when the words were a new religion arise into prominence, I thought it meant an established religion and based on how many mistranslations have been acknowledged. And I do think, in addition to what we just shared, in 2026, we will continue to see significant mistranslations being acknowledged. Not a ton of mistranslations. I mean, I'm sure there are many, but just very key mistranslations that when you translate it based on the original language, dramatically changes the context of the stories that have been told. And again, with that, but really focusing on this way in which 2026 will see Gen Z really connect with the elders. That's what we saw in our vision. It really brings about an opportunity, an invitation to cultivate the skill of communication. And we know communication is an equal part of listening and sharing. And we think of younger generation and older generation, we see both parts exchanging equally the energy of sharing and listening. And whether this is something that calls you forward, may you see your community, may you see your family, may you see your neighborhood as like a tribe. And may you take the time to balance the skill set of sharing and listening for the amplified, harmonious communication of everyone within all the tribes you may inhabit.
And so with that, I'm really feeling the closure of the conversation, and that as this timeline came together in the beginning of our conversation today, it brings us all back to a place where we have a greater opportunity to remember where we're from, who we are, why we're here. Feels like this timeline is bringing us all home.
Bringing us all home to the heart we've never left, as we ask ourselves, instead of looking for more things to control, how will we move through this? And may we move through this together as one.
So we said this was a part one of part two. So please stay tuned. We have a 2027 prediction coming out, and it really it takes this and goes to the next level and gives us even more awareness about what's unfolding over these next several years. So can't wait to see you there.
And just to share, the reason we're doing predictions for 2026 and 2027 is because we're, instead of looking at life so far into the future, we're only able to see in 2-year cycles of increment. And so we're sharing with you this 2-year cycle of expansion and growth for humanity. We're all in this together, and we're so blessed that we have the opportunity to walk this path with you.
Where we go one, we go all.